Hello there my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. It's so good to see you again. It is I coming at you once again, your favourite galactic hostess. It's your girl, Star Wars Meg. And today, I've got a very special video for you. We're going to be talking about the scrapped Star Wars concept that nearly changed the prequel trilogy. More specifically, Attack of the Clones. I know this year we're celebrating the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith, but I feel like I've spoken a bit too much about episode 3, and every now and again, I do like to switch things up, and today that means talking about episode 2, arguably the most criticized of all the George Lucas movies. But today, I'm going to give it its due, and maybe let you experience it in a way you never have before. So, when you think of Star Wars Expanded Universe books, what is now called Star Wars Legends, you don't often think of the novelizations to the movies. So often, Star Wars fans pass them up, and they say, well, I've already seen the film, so why do I need to read the book? But I've always felt that these novelizations are super underrated. In the past, if you've been subscribed since the beginning, you've heard me talk about the Phantom Menace novelization, and of course, the novelization of Revenge of the Sith, which recently got a huge popularity boost due to a re-release. But Attack of the Clones by R.A. Salvatore might be one of my favourite novelizations of a Star Wars movie. And what I like about novelizations is they allow certain characters, certain concepts that were touched upon in the films to breathe. It's almost like you're given more time in that world. And Attack of the Clones, if you've ever read it, is so different from the movie. And there is one scrapped concept that R.A. Salvatore spoke about with George Lucas that I really wish had been included in the movie. It's the opening 3 chapters, which don't start on Coruscant and don't start with Padme's decoy. They start with Shmi and the last homestead. One of my fascinations as a prequel fan is the gap between the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, the gap in between episodes 1 and 2, the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin, his struggles, adjusting to his new life as a Padawan, and while both the expanded universe and canon do explore this to some extent, the one character who's really left out is Shmi, Anakin's mother. We know she dies in episode 2. Anakin has bad dreams, he goes to Tatooine, he tries to save her from the Tuscans, there is tension in between him and the Jedi Order, Anakin is very emotionally vulnerable, he wasn't given the best therapy or advice, but when he gets there, it's too late, and he buries his mother. But did you know the novel makes it worse, because the opening chapter is Shmi on Tatooine thinking about Anakin, having the complete opposite idea of what it's like to be a Jedi. She would never know about his personal struggles, him turning to the dark side, or even about Qui-Gon's death. She assumed Anakin's life was made, and everything was going to be smooth sailing, and it was just going to be a life of glitz and glamour. And her idea of Anakin the Jedi hero is so tragic in light of what's to come, in light of his turn to the dark, which actually begins in episode 2, as he's slaughtered the Tuscans. Qui-Gon's ghost from the netherworld of the Force screamed, "Anakin, no." So let's dive straight in. This is my summarized version of the opening scene. Shmi Skywalker stood on the edge of the sand berm, marking the perimeter of the moisture farm. She had one leg on top of the ridge, her knee bent. This was a special night. It was as if the Force itself was whispering to Shmi through the Tatooine sands. For this night was Anakin's 20th birthday, her dearest Annie, the little boy she raised and brought to Tatooine. But on this night, she felt close to Anakin, yet so far. How different he must be these days. How different his life must be. How grown, how strong, and how wise in the ways of the Jedi. Shmi, who spent most of her life on Tatooine, couldn't even begin to imagine the wonders her boy had seen, the adventures he'd been on among the stars, on planets so different from this, with colours more vivid and more water than sand. A smile appeared on her face as she remembered the days long past, when she and Anakin had been slaves to the wretched Watto. Anakin, with his mischief and his dreams, with his independent attitude and courage, used to infuriate the Toydarian. But despite the hardships of life as a slave, despite not having much, despite few possessions and little food, despite the worries of the future, they were a family. They had each other, and that was enough. Shmi imagined Anakin as a brave Jedi Knight, freeing others across the galaxy from slavery and torment. And as her mind began to wander, a quiet voice came from behind her. "You should really come in." The voice came from her stepson, Owen. who called her Mum. And that's right guys, Uncle Owen called his stepmom Mum. He saw Shmi, Anakin's mother, as his own. And of course his dad, Clee Glass, is the one who saved Shmi from slavery when he married her. But it's insightful, because the two then have a back and forth, and Shmi told Owen everything about Anakin. And this not only makes the prequel trilogy sad, but also renders the Obi-Wan show even more tragic, because Owen didn't want Luke to be trained as a Jedi. And when Obi-Wan suggests the boy needs to be trained, Owen replies, like you trained his father? Because Owen blames the Jedi for Anakin's death. It's strongly implied that Owen doesn't know Anakin turned to the dark side. Either Owen thinks Anakin died during Order 66, or he thinks Obi-Wan was responsible for Anakin's death. But the novel renders this connection more tragic, because it's so much more than just Owen being Anakin's stepbrother. It's the fact he had a deeper connection to him, because every year on Anakin's birthday, or maybe even every night, he heard stories about him through Shmi. And because he saw Shmi as his own mum, he doesn't want the same fate to befall Luke, and that's why he's so protective. So this adds another dimension, not just to the relationship between Shmi and Anakin, but also Anakin, Shmi, and Owen. Another detail that is really heartbreaking is that every year on Anakin's birthday, Shmi looks up to the sky and looks for a starship. And almost like a full superstition, if one does fly by, she assumes it's Anakin. But on the evening of Anakin's 20th, there was no starship. And she says to Owen, who she treats like her own son, Anakin must be busy. He's probably out there saving the galaxy or chasing smugglers or other outlaws. He has to do those things, you know. He's a Jedi Knight. A proud mother who in just a few pages' time is captured by the Tuscans. A really sad detail, but I suppose she gets to see Anakin one last time. The mainline Star Wars comics do depict the other side of this. We eventually get to see Vader reflect on his past and what his mother would think of him. And we also later meet Anakin's childhood friends. And in the comic, he does spare their lives, but they don't know it's him. But returning to this novel, imagine if the opening scene of Attack of the Clones was on Tatooine and we got to see Shmi reminisce. Now, something to note about the author. This was not R.A. Salvatore's first Star Wars book. He was best known for his novel The New Jedi Order Vector Prime, the story in which Chewie dies. And initially, given fan backlash, R.A. Salvatore said no to writing the novelization for Attack of the Clones. But his fellow Star Wars author, Terry Brooks, encouraged him and reminded him he gets to work alongside George Lucas. And keep in mind, before Disney relegated the expanded universe, this novel, as well as so much of the EU, was canon. So the scrapped Shmi story originally stood. What are your thoughts though, guys? Share them in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this kind of video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and may the Force be with you always.